So let us comes to here. In today's class, we will continue from this balanced and unbalanced forces. So I hope already you have kept the heading balanced and unbalanced forces. Is it yes or no? Balanced and unbalanced forces. So I hope, have you drawn the diagram? Pradosh? Darun?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you have drawn the diagram. I think, am I given the definition also, balanced forces?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is what we have discussed. So as you know that balanced and unbalanced forces means the resultant of all the forces which are
Is
acting
equal.
is zero, which are acting on your body is zero, then the forces are called balanced forces. Is it yes or no? So that is what we have studied in the last class. So now I have given you the definition also. So we can observe this kind of balanced forces. So when we're seeing in even a tug of war, you may see that. Correct or not? So tug of war, when the people are pulling the rope between the two teams, understand the rope is pulling between the two teams. When they're applying the same amount of force in the both the direction, then the rope cannot move into the neither into the any direction. So that is also we can say that by that time it is what? Balanced forces. Is it yes or no? Is it yes or no?
Yes,
Yes?
sir.
Yes. So as we know that if a number of balanced forces acting on a stationary body, understanding, it will be, if the resultant force is zero, then the body remains continuous, it remains in state of stationary position, as well as the number of balanced forces acting on a body in uniform motion. In uniform motion, what will happen? The body continues to be in state of uniform motion. Do you understand or not? So the body which remains in state of rest, even though if so many forces are acting, but all the forces are balanced forces, then what is happening? The body remains in state of stationary. The same way, the body which is in uniform motion, even though the number of balanced forces are acting on it, the body still remains in a state of uniform motion. So that is what we have studied, balanced forces. But though the balanced forces cannot produce the motion in a stationary body, or else they cannot stop a moving body with a uniform velocity, but they can change the shape of the body. That is what we have studied. Is it yes or no? They can change the shape of the body. For example,
Yes, sir.
balloon. So even though you are applying the equal forces from the opposite direction, understand? So we may change we can observe that the balloon shape may changes, but the balloon, we cannot create a motion in it, or else if it is in uniform motion, we cannot stop it. So that is what we should call it as balanced forces. Is it yes or no? All of you? Yes? Tamil Selvan?
Yes, sir.
So till there we have studied in the yesterday's class. So balanced forces, I hope you have written only heading. Is it yes or no, Pradosh? You have written only definition. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Definition also.
Definition.
Wrote, sir.
Box, that diagram, heavy box, I have told you to draw. Now again you can continue from there, because girls, you join, correct? You can write it. Balanced forces. If the resultant of all the forces acting on a body, if the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is zero, those who written, you no need to write, is zero, comma, the forces are called balanced forces. The forces are called balanced forces. So balanced forces acting, two things you should remember. The body which is in rest remains at rest. The body is in uniform motion, remains in uniform motion. Is it yes or no? When the balanced forces are acting on it. Okay?
Yes, sir.
For example, if you take a heavy box, understand, which has been kept on ground. So we can apply 4 different kind of forces here. What is that forces, Ra? First thing, I can push the object, correct or not? Force of our push. Force of our push. So that is. So now what will happen here? If we'll apply this, then oppositely who will be acting? Oppositely who will be acting, Ra?
Friction.
Oppositely, here heavy box. Heavy box. So as we know that oppositely, the friction of force is acting. Force of friction is acting. So now this force is equals to this force, then the box cannot move. So that is only called as balanced forces. As well as the box cannot go downwards, as well as the box cannot go upwards, because downwards force of gravity will be there. Force of gravity. So that is only we used to known as what? Weight of the box. What we should call? Weight of box. As well as when the box is exerting some force on ground, then ground also will exert some opposite force. That is only we should call as what we should call, Ra? Force of, why others are not saying? Force of reaction. If people yesterday itself you studied current. Force of reaction, which is exerts by whom, Ra? Exerted by Darun? Exerted by ground. So this is what the example of balanced forces. Now, this body will remains in state of rest, understanding. So why in the sense of this force and this force are balanced, and this force and this force are balanced. So even though the four forces are acting in this body, the body remains in state of rest. It is not moving in any direction, because it is what? They all are the resultant force of the sum of this all the forces,
Zero.
which is the sum of this all the forces which are equals to 0, so that the body remains in state of rest or stationary position. That is what. Laksha, do you understand, Laksha, this one? Yes, sir. So that is okay. Write it now. Draw this diagram. Those who have not drawn this diagram, you please kindly draw this diagram. Completed? Completed, Ra? Yes or no? Next. One more example you can write.
Yes, can you do it?
One more example you can write. Completed, Ra? Yes? This is the example one. Do you understand or not? Next. Also, you can write one more example. Write all of you. In a tug of war, 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 that is in rope pulling between two teams, in rope pulling between two teams, in tug of wars, that is in rope pulling between two teams, rope pulling between two teams, rope pulling between two teams, comma, if the resultant of force, if the resultant of forces, if the resultant of forces, if the resultant of forces, if the resultant of forces acting on a stationary body, understanding, acting, sorry, if the resultant of forces applied by the two teams, applied by the two teams, if the resultant of forces applied by the two teams is zero, is zero, comma, the rope does not move in either direction. The rope does not move in, the rope does not move in either direction. The rope does
Sir,
not,
resultant force applied.
the resultant forces applied by the two teams is zero. The resultant force applied by the two teams is zero. Two teams is zero. Is zero. The rope does not move in either direction. The rope does not move in either direction. The rope does not move in either direction. Because why?
Either direction.
Why? Because the forces are becoming by the two teams is what? The resultant forces are applied by the two teams is,
Zero.
so both it is balanced and opposite direction. These fellows will pull like this and these fellows will pull like this. So if it is balanced forces, then rope does not move into the any direction because the resultant force is what? The resultant force is
Zero.
zero. So that is what you can say. So from these two examples, understand, we can conclude that even though the forces are applying on any body, if the number of understanding balanced forces acting on your body, even though 10 forces let them act on your body, but if they balance it, then what will happen? The body which is in stationary remains will be in stationary. Even though the forces, the stationary for the balanced forces are acting on your body which is moving in uniform acceleration or uniform velocity, remains the body is in what? Uniform
Yes.
motion. Understanding? Continuously in uniform motion, even though the number of balanced forces are acting on it. That is what you should remember. But by applying this uniform, this unbalanced forces, we may change the understanding. We may change the shape of the body, but we cannot understanding produce motion in a body, or else we cannot stop a moving body. So that is what you should remember. Do you understand, all of you? Yes,
Yes,
or no?
sir.
Right.
Sir.
That points you should remember. Right. If a number of balanced forces, 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 if a number of balanced forces act on a stationary body, 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 comma, if a number of balanced forces act on a stationary body, comma, the body continues to remain, the body continues to remain, the body continues to remain, all of you should write, the body continues to remain in its stationary position. The body continues to remain in its stationary position, stationary position, remain in its stationary position, full stop, in its stationary position, full stop. Similarly, similarly, if a number of balanced forces, if a number of balanced forces, if a number of balanced forces, if a number of balanced forces acting, or else if a number of balanced forces act on a body, act on a body in uniform motion, in uniform motion, in uniform motion, in uniform motion, the body continues to be in, the body continues to be in,
Sir, balanced forces.
the balanced forces act on a body in uniform motion, in uniform motion, the body continues, the body continues to be in its, to be in its, to be in its state of uniform motion, state of, state of uniform motion. State of uniform motion. That is what it is. Understand? And the last point regarding balancing forces. Though balancing forces, though balancing forces though balanced forces cannot produce motion, though balanced forces cannot produce motion in a stationary body, in a stationary body, or stop a moving body, or stop a moving body, or stop a moving body, comma, they can, however, change the shape of the body. However, change the shape of the body. However, they can change the shape of the body. Do you understand? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
All of you.
Yes, sir.
So that is what. Example. What is this example for this point? Can anybody say? Applying balancing forces on balloon. Is it yes or no? So when we are taking the balloon and if we are trying to apply the equal forces, understanding, in the opposite direction, understanding, the ball or balloon, if it is not move, its a shape changes. If we are applying equal and opposite forces with our hands, if I suppose I am trying to press the balloon like this, it is not moving, but its a shape is changing. Is it yes or no? The shape is?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
That is the example of, even though the balanced forces cannot move a stationary body or else they cannot stop a moving body, but they can change the shape of a understanding a body. That is what example you can write. Example,
Sir, can you please move, sir?
complete this first. Manya and Samya, have you completed this? So now,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
example,
sir.
example you write. Example. Squeezing of a rubber ball or balloon. Example, squeezing of a rubber ball, squeezing, S-Q-U-E-E-Z-I-N-G, S-Q-U-E-E-Z-I-N-G, squeezing of a rubber ball. Squeezing of a rubber ball. Okay, da? Yes or no? So, this is all what we should call as balanced forces. Is there any doubt, anybody?
No, sir.
No doubt, sir.
So if you'll understand this one, then we can go for opposite to this one. So that is only called as unbalanced forces. What we should call? Unbalanced forces.
Balanced forces.
Let us, all of you just keep forces and you listen first. Later only you can write it. Now, unbalanced forces. So what is the meaning of this unbalanced forces means? All of you should remember. As we know that balanced forces means what? Whatever the forces acting, if you do the sum, totally if you do the sum, then what will happen? The resultant force must be equals to? The resultant force must be
Zero.
equal to 0. So that is what we used to call as balanced forces. Is it yes or no? Now, if it comes
Yes,
to
sir.
balanced forces, all of you should remember the sum of the understanding. If the resultant force, resultant of all the forces acting on a body is not zero, Do you understand what I am saying? Is not.
Yes, sir.
If zero, balanced forces. If not zero, then that is only wish to called as unbalanced forces. Means in the sense of, you may understand, one force definitely more it will be. Is it yes or no? Then it will never become
Yes, sir.
zero. So that is what. If the resultant of all the forces acting on a body is not zero, understanding, then the forces are called as unbalanced forces. Unbalanced forces. Now, if you see, when unbalanced forces acting on a body, then they produce a change in its state of rest. Do you understanding that? So unbalanced forces are applying. Suppose that heavy box, you may notice the heavy box. Do you understanding? So if you'll observe this heavy box, what is happening? Pradosh alone has tried to push this box. So box is not moved because oppositely friction force is there so that it is balanced. Both are balanced so that it is no displacement in the box. Now, all the boys, I told you to, all Manish, Tamil Selvan, Darun, everybody now try to push this box. So definitely the box will start moving forward. Is it yes or no?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
sir.
So by the time also the friction force is acting, by the time also friction is acting, by the time also weight of the box is acting downwards. That is only we used to call it as gravitational force. And opposite to that, reaction force is acting. But still the box is moving because even though this force and this force will become equal and it will become balanced, but this frictional force is less than this push. Is it yes or no? Less
Yes, sir.
push. So that is why the body will start moving forward. So now in this case, the push is greater than that. So that is it become balanced or unbalanced? It is not becoming zero. Is it yes or no? So definitely it
Yes,
will
sir.
become value. So that is why if the resultant of all these forces is not becoming zero, then that is what we should call it as unbalanced forces. So because of this unbalanced forces, what we can do, we can produce a change in state. Is it yes or no? Change in state. So means in the sense of the body which is in rest, we can produce a motion. Is it yes or no? All of you.
Yes, sir.
Or else the body which is in means the body which is in rest, we can produce a motion. Or else the body which is in uniform motion, which is uniform motion, so we can increase the speed or else we can decrease the speed. Is it yes or no? We can
Yes, sir.
or decrease, or else we can bring it to rest also. Is it yes or no, all of you?
Yes, sir.
That is. So this is only called as unbalanced forces. So because of unbalanced forces, we can bring the changing, understanding, changing in its state by what? Changing in its state, understanding of rest or of uniform motion, of rest or of what? Uniform.
Uniform motion.
So we can bring some change in its rest position or from its uniform position. So that is only called as balanced position. Balanced, unbalanced forces. For example, if we'll take unbalanced forces can move a stationary body. If we'll apply these unbalanced forces in any body, then the body which is in rest will start moving. Understand? Or else the body which is in motion, we can stop them. Is it yes or no? The body which is in uniform motion, we can stop it by keeping our understanding unbalanced forces. Do you understanding that? So that is the
Yes, sir.
unbalanced forces acting in a body can change even the speed. Understanding, may either they can increase the speed or they can decrease the speed, or even they can change the direction of motion also. Is it yes or no? They can
Yes,
change
sir.
the direction of motion also. Suppose the body is traveling uniform motion, the car is traveling in the uniform motion like this. Now by applying unbalanced forces, we can we can change the direction opposite to the motion. Is it yes or no? So
Yes,
that's
sir.
what you should remember. So by applying unbalanced forces only, we can bring a change in its state of rest or state of uniform motion. So now, suppose if you want to move, if you want to drive your car, if you want to ride your bicycle, then which forces are useful? Balanced forces or unbalanced forces? Anybody? If you want to create a
Unbalanced
motion in your
forces.
body, or else if you want to stop a moving body, then you need which forces? Balanced or unbalanced forces?
Unbalanced forces.
All of you, unbalanced forces. Is it yes or no? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Suppose. That is what you should remember. Always only unbalanced forces can create motion in a body which is in rest, or else they can bring the body to the rest which is in motion, or else they can increase the speed of a body, or else they can decrease the speed of a body, or else they can change the direction of a body. Only who can change? Unbalanced forces. Do you understand, Manish? So with the
Yes,
balanced
sir.
forces, we
sir.
cannot bring any change in the body. With unbalanced forces only, understand, we can bring any change in the body. So that we need balanced forces or unbalanced forces. We need balanced or unbalanced for doing it.
Unbalanced forces.
So whatever the action you are doing, I am rubbing this bone. Then also here also unbalanced forces. That is why I am. If not, I cannot rub this bone. So that is what you should remember. For example, let us take the car. Understanding. Suppose a car is lying on the ground. Understand. Suppose most of you are having car. So let us take the ground. So this is the ground which I have. Now let us take the car which is parking on the ground. So if you take, I hope you are all having car. Is it yes?
Yes, sir.
I will draw. I am very good in car drawing. If the car is bad, also you have to accept it. Okay, da? So this is the car
Okay,
which I
sir.
have taken. Or else those who want simple car, understanding, toy car you can take. So those who want car like this also you can draw. Very simple. I think this looks more beautiful. Is it yes?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
So now you take, this is the car. Understanding, right? Normal toy car you can take. Toy car moves. So how it will move? If you place on it a floor, is it automatically moving? Toy car or is normal car also?
No, sir.
No. So let us take now. So as we know, if it is in balanced forces, no motion in this car. Now, if I try to push, understanding, force of push of our push. If I try to push this car, force of our push. So if I am pushing from this side, then opposite side who is acting now? Something will be acting.
Friction.
That is only called as
Friction.
is called as
Friction.
force of friction.
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 If it is balanced, then there is no motion in this car. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I have to apply little bit more force, which is dominating this friction. Then only the car will start moving forward. Is it yes or no? So as well as when this car is moving, or else it's rusted, always downward some force is acting. So that is only which to called as what? Force of gravity. Understand? That is what? Because of weight of this car. Because of weight of toy car. And oppositely ground also will exert some force. What is that? Force of
Reaction.
Force of
Reaction.
reaction exerted by ground.
By ground.
understand exerted by ground. So this is what example. Now let us see in this also four things are four forces are acting if you'll observe carefully. So let us push this car with our hand. So we can find that the toy car will start moving. Is it yes or no? If we'll push with our finger also, then we can
Yes,
observe
sir.
that the car
Yes, sir.
will start moving. Why it is moving? That is what our question. If we'll see that, if we'll push this car forward, then the car will start moving. So here you can also, four forces are acting on this toy car. One is understanding force of gravity, which is acting downwards, and the force of reaction of ground, which is acting upwards. They are equal and opposite. So that is why what will happen, Ram? These two forces are balanced. Is it yes or no? Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So forces are
Yes,
acting
sir.
opposite to each other and they are equal. They are equal. So that is why, understand, it will become balanced. But if you'll observe here, due to the wheels of the toy car, the opposing force of friction, understanding, because of wheels, do you understand it? Because of wheels, the opposing force of friction is much less. Is what? Much less. Do you understand
Less.
what I'm saying? So because of wheels,
Yes, sir.
understand the friction force, friction is much less. So that what will happen? The resultant of all the forces, if we'll try to push, understanding, therefore greater than the force of friction in this case. So they cannot be balance each other. So that is why the resultant of all these forces acting on the toy car is not zero. Is it yes or no? Is not.
Yes, sir.
So that is why
Yes, sir.
moving forward. So that is the reason. Understand the net unbalanced forces. The net unbalanced forces is not zero. They have some forces. Understand that all the balance, all the forces are not zero. So that is why something is remaining. Some force is extra. So that is only called as a net unbalanced force. So this net unbalanced force is acting on this toy car, which makes the car move from one position to another position. From which state? From state of rest. Is it yes or no? From state of
Yes,
rest,
sir.
start moving forward because of some net unbalance is remaining. So that is the reason why it will move. Now, if you'll observe, what is the direction of our pushra? If our direction of push is towards the left side, is it car will move right side or it will also will move in the left side?
Left side.
Left side only.
Left side, sir.
We are pushing towards the left side. Then what is the direction of friction, girls? What is the direction of friction?
Right side.
The friction will be
Right side.
right side, because as we know that friction is a force, understanding, which will always opposes the understanding motion of a body. Is it yes or no? The friction
Yes, sir.
is a understanding type of
Yes,
force
sir.
opposes the motion. So that is why when we are trying to push the body in this rightward direction, then the force of friction will be acting opposite to that. But here it is very, very less because of the wheels. Wheels can easily rotate and it can pass on surface, understanding. And every time the position of contacting of these wheels is changing, so that the friction is much less. So our push is enough, sufficient, understanding, balanced for having a unbalanced forces to push this car moving forward, so that the car will start moving forward. Do you understand, all of you? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So that is
Yes,
what
sir.
remember. So that is what an unbalanced forces. So if you want to create a motion in a body which is in rest, you have to create some net unbalanced forces. Means the resultant forces of all these forces acting in a body should not become what? There should not become
Zero.
Means some net unbalanced forces remains. Unbalanced forces remains, so that the car will start moving. So that is what we used to call as, understand, unbalanced forces. Now, if you want to move a stationary object or else this toy car much faster, what you will do, Ra? What you people will do? Tell me please.
Push faster.
Much faster. What you will do? Suppose your father is riding the car. He wants to go much faster. What he will do? He will press the accelerator.
Sir, raise the speed.
Increase the speed. Yes or no, Ra?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Means in the sense of he will press the accelerator. Is it yes or no? If he will press the accelerator, then speed will go much faster. Speed
It will go fast, sir.
continuously, so that car will go faster. Like that, suppose imagine your toy car. If you want to push this, if you want to move it very faster, what you will do? You will push more faster. Is it yes or no? You will just push like this normally. It will travel certain distance, or else it will go slowly. If you push very fastly, what will happen? The car also will go very
It will
fast.
go fastly.
So that is what you can see that. If you want to increase understanding, if will greater the force of friction, this push, then greater will be the opposing force of friction. That is what you should remember. So if you take any kind of stationary object, if you want to push it with a force greater than the opposing force of friction, then only the body will start moving. If you want to make it move much and much faster, then you have to apply more and more amount of push, which is more and more greater than the force of friction, so that only the body can move much faster. So whenever we are applying, our push must have more force than the frictional force, then only, understanding, we can say that what is happening? The body will start moving forward. Is it yes or no? Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
That is. Now suppose, let us get first case, there's a tug of war, means holding the rope. So when they are applying the balanced forces, the rope cannot move any direction. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Suppose on one side, if they are applying the more amount of pull, if they will pull more, then what will happen, Ra? All suppose these two fellows are fighting. Now this fellow will apply more amount of force in the tugs of war. Understand? They're pulling the rope. Then he will try to pull with the more force. Then this all the fellows will fall down this side, forward direction, and the rope will come. Understanding? Backward. Is it yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now suppose if this fellow will apply more amount of force, what will happen? These all fellows will fall this side, forward direction, understand, into the opposite side, and the rope will go this side. Is it yes or no? Because they are applying
Yes, sir.
more force.
Yes,
So
sir.
that some unbalanced force is acting. So that is why, understanding, the body is moving in one direction in the tugs of war. Suppose in the another case, when I am holding a suitcase above the ground, say a certain level, understanding, then the force of gravity acting in the suitcase is balanced by the upward force of our hand. Is it yes or no, Ra? That is what yesterday we have studied. Understand? So that is why the suitcase is not falling, which we are holding in a certain level. Now suppose
Yes, sir.
the suitcase from our hand, what will happen? If we release the suitcase from our hand, what will happen? I am holding this marker in my hand. Now it is here only. If I will hold like this 1 day, 10 days, 1 year, then also there is no change in its position. Will you accept it? Will you accept it?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Yes, sir.
Two forces are acting. Do you understand? Here two forces are acting. One force is towards to the downwards, gravity, and another force which is upward direction, which I am applying with my hands, which is acting on upward direction. That is why the body is balanced forces, so that it is not moving in any direction. Do you understand? It's not
Yes,
moving
sir.
in any direction. Now, suddenly if I release, what is happening? If I release, what is happening? What is happening? If I am not applying the forces from my hands, what is happening? If I release that suitcase or else this marker
Sir,
from
it will
my
fall
hand,
down.
then the unbalanced forces.
Fall down, sir.
So what is happening? By the time the gravity will become unbalanced. Is it yes or no? So my hands, the force is zero.
Yes, sir.
The gravitational force is become unbalanced. It means in the sense of more, so that more that the gravitational force is acting always in the downward direction. So that what will happen? The unbalanced forces of gravity, understanding, on it, and the suitcase falls to the where? Falls to the where? It will fall to the ground. Is it yes or no?
Ground.
Ground.
Yes, that is what. So in this
Yes,
case
sir.
also,
Yes, sir.
the force of, in this case also, the force of gravity only produces the motion, understanding, in this marker or else any kind of body which we are holding in the certain height from the ground. Do you understand? Like in the tugs of war.
Yes, sir.
So something will be happen. That is what will happen. So that is what you can observe in tugs of war also. Those who can apply more amount of force. So that is what they can either falls towards the right side or left side. So the team which is weak, they have less stamina. So that team will falls towards to the opposite team direction. So that is what the example. Or else you can see while you are cycling, understanding, while you are cycling.